What's up, everybody, and welcome back to KyTalk Live. This is your host, Mike Morgan, and today I am very excited to introduce actor, director, writer, and just all-out nice guy, Taz Garcia. Welcome to the show, Taz. How are you today?
Thank you, man. I'm super excited to be here, and I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Better now that we have you here. I tell you, one of the things I was most excited about, this is a true story, I love talking to people with as much energy as you have. You put out this positive vibe. You tend to be this type of inspirational figure wherever you go, and I just absolutely love that.
It's the vibe you give out, the vibe you get back. So here
Uh,
it is.
Absolutely, and going into that, you are actually dubbed the nicest guy on set. Is that correct?
What? What? Yes. I've heard that a few times.
Well, and I love that because you do hear a ton of horror stories on set with different actors, of things that could go wrong. And I think it's not as common as we all hear or like to, because you always remember the bad. But I love to hear about people who are just respectful of one another. I mean, you hear about actors who, no matter who comes on set, you're going to shake their hand, you're going to say hi, and they're going to be treated just like you would want to be treated. I think it's an excellent example.
Just like humans. Just like humans. We're all humans. It doesn't matter what hair you wear or what department you're from. It doesn't matter where you're from, background, religion, color. It doesn't matter at all. We're all the same damn thing. You know,
Exactly.
and especially when you're on set, we all need each other. We all depend on each other. The makeup to make us look great, wardrobe to dress us the part, the trainers to get us fit, the editors to edit everything.
I mentioned you being an actor, writer, director, but there's so much more to you. I failed to mention, of course, already, martial artist, and I'd love to get into that. How long have you been into martial arts?
Oh, I've done martial arts for, let's say I started when I was 10 or 11. It was a pretty funny journey because my parents were completely against it to start off. And then I've been doing it ever since, and I'm almost 40 now. So it's been a way of living, a way of helping myself focus, stay on track, disciplined
A lot of
when
discipline.
the motivation leaves you. And of course, it's a great workout, and it's really good how it meshes really well with what I do on screen as well.
Oh, absolutely. Now, you just said you're almost 40. I mean, I look at me and I'm like, this is 40. I look at you, I'm like, that's 29.
Oh man,
What's your
oh man.
secret?
Oh man, it's funny because a lot of times I walk on set and the breakdown's gonna say something like mid 30s, and I'll show up and they're like, "Did you read the character breakdowns?" Like, yeah. They're like, and they're like, "Here's my license, go for it." Right? They're like, "Oh man," they're
Yeah.
like, "Come back when you're 70." So, and
That's the,
I'm like,
it's a good problem to have, though. Huh?
it is in a way. It is in a way. It is because it works to your advantage.
Hmm.
And I think a big part of it comes from the martial arts, the training, and really being disciplined and taking care of yourself, meditating, taking the stress away. Because I feel stress is one of the biggest aging factors. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. So obviously you take care of yourself. Fitness is a huge part of your daily regimen, I'm certain.
Right.
Yeah. You actually started off, let's see, martial arts. What was one of your first styles of martial arts you started training in?
The very first style I jumped into was Taekwondo, and it lasted about 2 weeks. And I moved into karate, and I kept going until I got my black belt. And along the way, I started coming across, TV shows and movies that had Bruce Lee and had Jackie
Jackie
Chan, and
Chan.
I was like, oh man, what style is this? This is not karate. And what style is that? I want to learn that. It looks really cool.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I dabbled in Wing Chun. I did the animal styles, the
Interesting.
dragon, the tiger, the crane, the the actual kung fu styles, which was very very cool and also very unorthodox
Hmm.
from a very orthodox ha ha. And people would make fun of you. They're like, oh, so you mean you can fight like a grass, like a praying mantis
Yeah.
or like a
Drunken
snake or
monkey or whatever.
exactly, right? And I was like, actually, this stuff does exist.
Yes.
And a lot of times in a fight, the unorthodox stuff actually tends to work.
Yeah.
Uh, so you got to keep an open mind, and it was very cool that transition. And then I ended up doing Greco wrestling and boxing.
Oh wow.
And when I did that at that same gym, my coach was a capoeirista or a capoeira student. And I was like, what is that? What is that breakdance fighting? What is that? Parkour gymnastics? What is it? He's like, no, it's called capoeira. I was like, capo who? He's like, capoeira. I fell in love. And shortly after that, I saw Mark Dacascos doing Only the Strong. And that was it. I did it for a good 17 years after that. So
Yeah, it's a very acrobatic, very animated martial art.
very.
You have to be in such great shape to be able to handle something like that. And I'm glad you actually said pronounced it for me, because I sat there this whole time dreading it. I'm like, I'm not going to pronounce this right. I know I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's honestly based on all the other martial arts I've come across and trained in, and sometimes even had to adapt or cheat for a movie or a role.
Hmm.
Capoeira needs to be one of the most three-dimensional fights. It's not linear. It's not just in, out, left, right, front, back. It's you can be upside down, still capable of fighting. You can have somebody take you down and still be able to fight. And the fact that the slaves were able to disguise it as a dance, and up until this very day, people that they
Hmm.
mistaken that it's a
That's
dance or
dense.
like dance fighting. I'm like, these guys were successful because that's exactly what they wanted. But genuinely speaking, it's very much like Jeet Kune Do, because if it's the foundation of Vale Todo or Everything Goes or MMA or street fighting, which is if somebody is very flashy, they want to flip and they want to bounce around, be very acrobatic, they could do that. But if they
Hmm.
simply want to over a sweep or block and be very in your face straight kicks, they could do that too. So capoeira is based on what's going to work for you, what's not going to work for you. But
Hmm.
there's the game element and there's the fight element. But most of the time people see the game and they're like, you don't hit each other, I was like, yeah, but it's not choreographed, so there's a very high chance.
Of getting
And
hit.
it also takes, oh yeah, and it takes a lot more skill not to hit someone when you go all out than for anyone to just smoke someone in the face.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
it's
You have
pretty extreme when you get into it.
you have to have so much control with it just to be able to.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, you
Oh yeah.
mentioned only being in Taekwondo, which seems like a very popular Korean martial art for many people. Especially here in the U.S., you always hear about somebody, if they have a martial arts background, they probably started in some sort of karate or Taekwondo.
Right.
But you were only in 2 weeks. What happened there?
Uh, I'm a very practical guy and a very realistic guy. So, we were doing lots of kicks. And I said, okay, well, if I get into a fight and I happen to bypass the kicking range and I get into elbows, headbutt, chops, punches, grapples, eye gouging,
Hmm.
what are my kicks going to do for me?
Yeah.
So, and in my head, I was seeing these movies and these confrontations and the competitions and best of the best. And I was like, yeah, the kicks are very cool and very flashy, but you're in a lot of trouble if they're a lot closer,
Yeah.
then your kick can be
Closing that gap.
effective, So that's when I see karate and I got into it because we had the chops, the takedowns, the elbows, the knee strikes, the knives, the blades, all that kind of stuff. So it was a lot more suited for me.
Now, speaking of DC, you actually had some involvement with one of their hit movies, Suicide Squad, years ago.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that, because I'm a big nerd and this just sounds right up my alley.
Uh, I heard about Suicide being filmed in the city and around the city, and I really knew maybe Harlequin, and I knew a couple of more characters on, and I was like, okay, that's cool, and I'll check it out when it comes out,
Hmm.
right? And I've heard about the comics, the games, so I was like, okay, all right, well, if fate has it, somehow maybe I'll get pulled into this project. And sure enough, the stunt guys, they called me in for a favor and they're like, hey, would you come in? We just need some help with stunts that day, which I don't typically do just stunts if it's not attached to my character. But if it's a favor, I was like, sure, why not? So I showed up, we did it. It was a great time, got to meet a lot of the cast and the crew, super fun, super long day.
I bet.
Uh, oh yeah, we got in at 4 a.m. They said we're gonna start at 5:30 when the sun was still coming out, and we would rap when the sun was coming down, which was basically a sunlight dependent shot.
Oh
And
wow.
obviously, we know in the world of film that never happens. 6 hours plus 18. So, so they cheated it. They got a bunch of cranes and they just lit it
Lit it
up
up,
and
yeah.
made. Oh yeah, made it look like the sun was still nice and up there. We kept going. But yeah, it was a great time.
I have to ask too, are you a fan of Superman?
I am a fan of Superman, and that actually is something I grew into. At the beginning, not so much. When I was growing up, no. And then it just happened suddenly. I was a teacher in school. My students would refer to me as that. On set, off set, friends, family, helping people out and being that optimistic guy that saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And people are like, oh man, this and that. And it was like, really? And then one Christmas, it just happened. Everyone bought me everything Superman, underwear, socks, bed sheets, everything was Superman. I was like, hey, I guess maybe I'm not seeing something here, And then I actually kind of really looked into it, and I was like, you know what? I think it's just a matter of all of us finding the Superman or Superwoman in us, but we all have it there. It's just sometimes we choose to kind of really deny it and not really find that inner strength. But sometimes, if we are pushed enough, we have to resort to that reserve
Digging
that we
deep,
don't really
yeah.
tap into most of the time. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Well, and I strive to be I'm a Superman fanatic first off, so I've always strived because I loved the character to begin with. Again, just being more of a beacon of hope and, never wanting to cross that line. But the closest I think I've ever come to it is, owning a cape and a pair of underoos. What are some of your favorite movies with Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan? I mean, some of these classics.
I love the Game of Death, and I love Enter the Dragon. Those are two of my favorites. They changed the game, and there was little hints and subtle hints of Bruce Lee dropping the MMA seeds in there.
And Enter the
Uh,
Dragon, yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Enter the Dragon, also Game of Death. When every time he was kind of facing all these different kind of
Going to each.
uh, I guess, yeah, one of each style, like Dennis Santo had one style, then Higo Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had a different style, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, that was great to see. And then of course Jackie Chan. Wow, I'm a huge fan of school movies where it was like Police Story, Project A, Fearless Hyena, Rumble in the Bronx.
Rumble in the
You know,
Bronx. Wow.
that's when he was huge,
Yeah.
and I feel like that set the tone for a lot of up and comers right after that, where they're like, this is the true pioneers right here. And if you were to ever have a shot at action or being an action superhero of some sort, that's kind of where you got to step up.
And he's incredible. I mean, the stunts he performs, his martial arts ability, of course. And honestly, I would say in a lot of ways, you're a lot like Jackie Chan. You're our version over here, I guess, of Jackie Chan, because you do a lot of these incredible stunts as well. I'm sure you've encountered a few injuries here and there.
Yep, yep.
As a matter of fact,
Jackie's great. Jackie's great.
yeah, you're working with Jackie Chan. You worked with Jackie Chan and John Cena in a recent production. It's a Project Extraction.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, has a release date come out for that here in the U.S. and Canada?
Uh, we're still waiting. We're still waiting because we wrapped that up. It was very early in 2019, and it was due for a release by the end of that year.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got attached to another project which already released recently called Vanguard. And it was pretty cool because it reunites him with his great friend Stanley Tong, who brought him in for Rumble in the Bronx and the Hollywood realm. So when he called in that favor, originally it was a Jackie Chan stunt team attached to it, and then Jackie Chan came in and he played one of the characters. So he stepped out of the editing room of Project Extraction and started getting into the second engagement, which kind of obviously moved the schedules away and further down. And then the pandemic hit, so that pushed it down even more. So you gotta adapt. You gotta adapt, or you become extinct and obsolete.
So Jeet Kune
And
Do again. We're
yeah, absolutely right. You're always moving. You're always adapting and adjusting, and you always got to build,
mm-hmm.
right? So that's one thing that I've always been known to do, which is build and carve my own paths and not wait for the opportunity to land on my lap.
Hmm.
And when I was a kid, I also went through the Gulf War. So when they had the pandemic and they had the quarantine and they had the shutdown and they had the, you can't go out during this time and shop once a week or twice a month, I was like, okay, this brings me back, but at least there is safety. At least, if you're home, you're safe. You're not going to hear and hits you, accidental or intentional. So there was so many plus sides. At that time, when I was a kid, we didn't have cell phone, right? We didn't have Wi-Fi. We didn't have the Netflix and streaming services we have now. We couldn't have this conversation,
No.
right? So even if we had a cell phone or somebody else had a cell phone, you didn't know, or you couldn't necessarily connect with them, right? So it was a huge guessing game. We had blackout times where the entire city had to shut all their lights off. So the airplanes back then, with their technology, you would see everything as flat because the lights would show you the structures in 3D from above.
Mm.
So when everything's dark, it looks flat, right? So I mean, there was it came with a I guess I call it the deja vu, which is deja vu with a little stink to it, and but with many blessings too. You had to kind of push yourself into 2.0, 3.0, and great time finally spending it with family because I'm always moving, always around, right? And no more of that. I'm busy, can't do it later. You couldn't use that excuse anymore. It was good.
First thing I ever thought about when it came to making independent movies is you got to buy the best gear. So I've spent thousands of dollars going out and buying things. And you mentioned even people using an iPhone. I was like, shit, really?
Yep. Yeah.
And so how long have you been doing this? And I mean, tell me a little bit about the book and just some of the things you have utilized getting into the film industry.
Whew. Man. Okay. Flashback. 20 years ago, I was playing professional sports, and obviously it's very competitive, and you got to earn your spot. And it doesn't matter how good you are, you already have a team that's got their chemistry, and the representatives trust them, and you will get a chance eventually.
Mm-hmm.
You better be ready when that chance comes knocking. But until that chance comes there, sometimes you lose faith or you lose hope, and you're just like, okay, maybe I'll do something else, or yeah, one day the phone will ring. I was like, no, I want it now. I want to create something now. And I would sit down with a lot of my friends that were in film school at this time. And, they had amazing ideas, amazing concepts. And they would tell me, man, but I can't go out and shoot it because my prof told me I needed money to pay for my cast. I needed money to purchase permits or get the catering set or pre-production, post-production equipment. And I was like, I guess the money will give you the convenience, but why don't you just go out and shoot something? Just go and shoot it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, I can't. My prof and my school, and this is just the right way. What do you know? You're not in film school. I was like, very true. So we're going to do this. I'm going to go out and shoot a bunch of movies for zero budget. Okay. Also, zero experience. If anything, you're the one I'm sitting down with, and you're the one that already has the textbooks telling you about, prime lenses and telling you about depth of field and telling you about all the different equipment you need to make a movie look its best.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to just go out there, write something and shoot it. And then we'll talk. And I did. And my first movie was based on a true story, ironically about martial arts. And it did so well, and it got the attention of UFC. And we got some clothing sponsors. We got police cars, that the exact same police cars, the picture cars that were used in Silent Hill. But there was no drones at the time. We got a real helicopter. We got nightclubs. 170 people volunteering their time.
Wow.
In return for footage, in return for something that they can show on their demo reels, on their tapes. And that is one of the biggest assets that you could have as a performer or somebody that is crew, in terms of, this is my wardrobe on the screen on this actor, or this is my stunt, that's me performing it, or this is me and my lines. Mr. New Agent or Prospect Agent, this is me. What do you think? Because each one of us, we always want to showcase ourselves. We always want that chance to be seen and be heard. And this was it,
Mm.
at zero risk, according to their actual work schedules. And I was completely transparent. I was like, listen, this is my first time. I've directed stuff as a kid with like a JVC camera, just running around. I've been writing since I was 10, but let's learn the ropes together. And it did really well. And the next thing you know, a second one, a third one, a fourth one, they started getting exposure all around Las Vegas, Los Angeles, winning awards. And people started saying, ooh, okay, this is crazy. Oh, who's this actor? And I was like, that's me. They're like, oh, who's the director? That's me. What was your budget? 5,000? Zero. That's me. And the next thing you know, all these kids that were super down and just like, oh man, I don't, my prof told me this, all the naysaying that was just really pushing them down. They started going out and just doing it. And they had amazing results. Fast forward a few months and their school started calling me. Hey, so Taz, we're willing to offer you $10,000 grants. Would you take it? I was like, nope, because I knew exactly what they were trying to do is basically have me go the way the grain was growing,
Yeah.
right? But if I kept saying no, these guys were looking at me like this Robin Hood guy. And yeah, it went up to 25,000. I was like, nope, don't want it. This is more or less an inspirational effort than it is me taking the money, because I know if I take the money, it would be that much more. And I even remember talking to a friend of mine who was like, oh man, on IMDb, you should put budget, not like 50 or 500 bucks, you should put 10,000 minimum. I was like, no, because if I put 10,000 minimum and somebody actually had the 10,000, they would compare, they would go head to head.
Yeah.
So I actually want them to see that it was 500, and a producer to be like, holy smokes, he created that. Imagine giving this kid 500,000, how much he can stretch that dollar.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, $500 budget. I mean, it's admirable, first off, just the creativity, the level of creativity you have to make that work. And you mentioned a lot of things in this book that I've never considered. And one of them I thought about, you had mentioned Robert Rodriguez and how he had filmed El Mariachi. And of course,
Exactly.
he went to friends or anybody that owned a business. He's like, oh, you have a bar. I would like to film here. I'm like, oh,
Yep.
it's that simple. I have lots of friends that own bars. I never thought of that.
And that's exactly it. You will be surprised how many people are willing to help you if, one, you show them your passion and you're true and you're transparent.
Mm,
That is the biggest thing. If you are talking out of your rear end, then they're going to be like, he's flaky, he's shady, we don't trust him, he sounds too perfect. But if you're like, listen, this is my first time, I'm just getting my feet wet, do you guys mind giving me this? Right? Or listen, you've been a friend of mine, do you want to give me the bar and you'll be in one of the seats? Or you could actually be the barkeep, or you could be, thug number two if there's a fight, whatever it is, right? And you'll be surprised, because all these people at one point in time, for the most part, have had a dream of being on screen,
of course.
right? So that's one of the biggest things, and it's such an easy thing to communicate with friends and family at first, which is one of the biggest thing I mentioned in the book. But then, out of all of these zero budget films that we shot, or very low budget films that we shot, each and every single one of them I always gave back. So all the proceeds, we had 2 sold out theaters for each and every one of them. I actually have them back here behind me, and literally each and every one. The very first one we made $3,000,
Hmm.
15 and 15, sold out theaters, 2 floors each. Beautiful. We took that, gave it to ICU, Sick Kids Hospital.
Wow.
ICU, the intensive care unit, Sick Kids Hospital. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful cause. And I was like, here you go. And people are like, man, no, but for business, you put zero in, you made like all this return, ROI back. I was like, yeah, but I didn't put anything in, so I'm going to give it back. We have something in the form of credits and in the form of our, demo material here.
Hmm.
And it will speak for itself. It will speak for itself. And the next thing you know, we did something else, something else, something else. And my biggest and dearest was Dead End as well, because that became a huge game changer for female empowerment.
If you've given some incredible advice to people, which of course led to the briefcase and many others, I'm
And the book.
well,
And the book.
obviously, and a book, and I do highly recommend this book because as soon as I got it in the mail, I had ordered this just last week. I couldn't take my eyes off of it. I was really fascinated with it, first off, because there's so much I don't know. And again, talking about budget, here I am. Every day I've been shopping for the most expensive gear I can get to try to make an independent film. And I'm like, really? I could do it with this and everything I have already? This is so cool.
Yeah, yeah. You'll be surprised.
Well, and then even just podcasting content creators, this is a book that would really come in handy for them. I think it's a great resource, and it's something I'm sure I'm going to be utilizing quite a bit on a daily basis from this point forward. So I do highly recommend people get out there and get this book.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I think you're also going to enjoy my next one, which is Zero to Hero. It's about action for film.
Now, tell me about the action film. I mean, obviously you've had quite a bit of experience in there, and the stunt work you've done. I'd like to get, I guess, a little bit of insight into your upcoming book, Zero to Hero, because I could go for that in my life right now.
Who wouldn't? Uh, Very simple. It talks about how you could be a hero on camera, how you could have zero experience and still look great versus somebody who's a world champion and look really bad on camera, comparing Hollywood style versus Hong Kong style,
Mm-hmm.
the quick cuts and the shaky camera versus something really clean, to a really well rehearsed choreography with performers that actually showcase that it's them doing it, and the audience that's getting smarter every day to really appreciate the work and effort they're putting in. And genuinely, the comparison of what I call real, which is film, versus real, which is reality. You know, you've got the EE and the EA in there, and how a lot of times just because you're great at one does not mean it's going to translate well for the other.
Also, this year, one of the big things you have coming up, a huge event, MOVIE-EXPO 2021, which normally takes place up in Toronto, if I remember correctly.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Uh, this year, it will be done virtually, obviously, because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But tell us about MOVIE-EXPO. I would love to hear more about that.
Woo! Movie Expo is it's our baby. It's my partner and I. She comes from an events background. She's done tons of events around the city, film related and sport related. And obviously, I bring the expertise from the entertainment industry, but also the struggle
Mm-hmm.
of being a performer. You know, the needs, the wants, the wishes, the opportunities that are not there. And ultimately, we said, what if we could create something that is not a film festival where you've already produced and shot and ready to screen it, where it strictly focuses on bridging a gap between you as talent or crew, veteran or up and comer,
Mm-hmm.
and the opportunity. That gap we're going to bridge with something called the Movie Expo. And that's how the Movie Expo was born. And we've created seminars that typically, if it was in person, it is broken down into 3 days with three topics. The first day, everything's pre-production. So exactly like the major steps of making a movie. Pre-production topics and seminars and panels. And then we've got production and then post-production. And obviously some of them could bleed into alternative days as well. And then we had a trade show kind of feel as well on the floor where, you know, if you had the Russian arm, that camera that they use for John Wick or Fast and Furious, that big crane with the camera on top,
Mm-hmm.
you could get it, you could move the camera. If you wanted to see how they use the green screen, the cameras they use, the monitors, it was a great adventure for anyone that was a fan or a filmmaker for them to actually see what was the latest tech and wardrobe and the unions and everything else there as a almost trade show feel to it,
Yeah.
but also the educational aspect and networking aspect, which is essentially just like honestly any other industry. It's who you know, not just what you know. And one of the very successful things we had as well is the pitch sessions. We have a lot of writers and a lot of people that are creating content or writing their own work. And, you know, in hopes to sometimes they go to film festivals in hopes to, you know, schmooze and come across a producer. Hey, you want to make my movie? Or hey, you want to produce this, you know, web series or TV show? Sometimes it works,
Mm-hmm.
but the roots with this pitch session was literally you sat there like a speed date for 7 minutes with multiple acquisition specialists and producers, And here you were with your deck and you had your chance, and we had 1.7 million in option scripts. And this year
Wow.
we hope to double that. So tons and tons for you to get in and get out a completely different person with tons of knowledge, tons of questions answered, because our panels and our speakers, it's very interactive. It's not just someone speaking for 45 minutes or 60 minutes that
Hmm.
puts you to sleep. It's about paying it forward and being that beacon of hope.
What
Awesome.
can we expect from you, one of the founders of MOVIE-EXPO?
You can expect that I am still in the position of being hungry
Yeah.
and being humble. And the biggest thing that always propelled me forward is giving back, right? So my ultimate vision is, if I get to the top of the mountain and I'm there by myself celebrating my first prize or my gold medal,
Hmm.
that would suck if I have no one else to celebrate it with. So ultimately, I want to get up there and give hands to people, pull them up. And there's enough out there to go around,
Yeah.
and enough out there for many, many stars, not just one star, you know? So this is one of the biggest things that we have put together, in a sense of giving back, giving you that chance to be seen, be heard, no matter where you're from, no matter what background you are in terms of department as well. If you're stunts, if you're wardrobe, if you're makeup, if you're hair, if you're, we've got Stallone and Ben Affleck's trainer talking about all the tips they use to prepare the characters. All these people put in work and time and make the heroes look great. But do you know the name? No. Do you know who's the VFX artist that made Iron Man fly, or
Yeah.
made his suit look super cool, or Superman look great? No. But we know Henry Cavill, and we know he looks great,
Yeah.
and we know
Superman
Brad.
needs no help. He looks awesome.
Exactly, right? So that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So there's that undertone of shining a light on the stars behind the scenes as well.
With all of the things you have taken on so far, what kind of a role would you like to take on next? Something that you haven't done quite yet.
Easy to say, a superhero role.
Outstanding. See, that I dig that. Now, what kind of superhero? Are we looking at more of the Superman type, or something more along Batman, where he's like, he's got more vulnerabilities, but just a badass?
Uh, Honestly, I'm totally open to either or. Yeah, but I think it's always very cool to have somebody with a really deep story and
Yeah.
more dimensions to their character, in a sense.
I hope to one day turn on a movie or go to a theater someday down the road again and see Taz on screen as a superhero.
If you know a guy that knows a guy that needs a guy, I'm your
You're
guy.
the guy. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh man, it would be so awesome. I had a close call back in '05, and it was for the Power Rangers, and everything was solid, everything was good. I went to get my work permits. We were going to shoot it, but we were actually going to head down to New Zealand first,
Wow.
to shoot a bunch of pictures that were going to be referenced for the toys, the actual figurines. And it was the day I went in to get my permit, and they're like, "We're going to use someone else." And I was like, "What? What happened?" And they're like, "You're not black enough. Period."
That's an interesting way of putting it. Okay. I mean,
Right. Day in, day out, especially in this industry, you hear it all the time. You hear it from friends. "Oh, so you're still doing this acting thing? Oh, you still act?" They're talking to you like it's a hobby. Or like, "Oh, do you still smoke? Or do you still go out and party?" Right? "Oh, so do you still act?" But it's very understandable in a sense, because when you are doing a more orthodox or more traditional career, people are like, "Oh, doctor. What kind of doctor?
mm-hmm.
Teacher. What do you teach? Acting. Like YouTube?" Like, and now you've got like TikTok. It's kind of like, it's such a foreign concept, because no one pursues their dreams for the most part, especially if it's acting and singing. And you're crazy. That's a pastime. That's a hobby. There's no money to be made, right? And same with my parents. It was the same thing. They're all like, "Okay, you got to finish your school, do this, do that." And I was like, "Sure." So I finished my school, did the corporate world. And my dad, him and I would watch Jackie Chan movies, and he's like, "Oh, can you see how he moves this?" I was like, "Yeah, one day I'm actually going to work with him." He's like, uh, "You see Rambo? Yeah, Rambo's so famous. He's done this." I was like, "One day I'll work with him." One of them I worked with recently, and the other one, funny story about Project Extraction is actually it was supposed to be Jackie Chan and Stallone.
Alone, man.
Yeah, yeah. But then they went over the period that they could use him for because of the weather conditions. They were really, really bad. So they had to recast, and they got John Cena because he was filming Creed at the time. But I mean, it's such a funny world because, like I said, there's a lot of people with dreams, but they also don't want to take that leap because they're like, yeah, I'll just do what everyone's doing because I see my next step, my next step.
We conform, yeah. And
Absolutely.
if you look at it, I mean, the pressure you get from your, I mean, peer pressure, basically, you get from your surroundings, like you said, people do look, they do look at you a little differently if you decide to try something that's outside of the realm of their norm. As a matter of fact, recently when I started talking about, I'm going to go back to acting school, even my wife was like, you just hear crickets. And then she was like, no.
You're crazy, right?
And I mean, she's very supportive, but it was just kind of funny that brief hesitation, like, you're what?
Yep. 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 100%. And I mean, sometimes it's also because actors and acting and that whole industry has a certain reputation that
Mm,
comes with it as a package. So, I mean, the individuals could be different,
yeah,
but overall, as a rep, it's not the sparkliest. Let's just put it that way. You
no,
know what I mean? But
absolutely.
hey, I'll tell you something. It's you kind of hit it right on when you said all the speculation and negativity and naysayers, and there's that quote I remember that said, first they're going to ask you why, and then they're going to ask you how, right? Why you're doing it, and then they say, how'd you do it, right? So if you just follow that, it's one of the best things to keep you going.
Well, for me, and I think you would appreciate this quote, it's been one of my favorite all throughout my life, and working in the corporate world, I kind of forgot about it for about a decade. But Bruce Lee had once said, the key to immortality is first living a life worth remembering. And that has always stuck with me every day.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
And you are doing that.
Oh man, oh man, and it's great because when you start hitting certain milestones and people see you, it acts as eh, I guess, a light where people are like, hey, okay, well, I guess there is a chance because sometimes there's relatability. They'll see you and they'll be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we were in class together. I just stopped. He kept going. So I guess if I get back on that train, I'll just arrive later,
Hmm.
right? That's one thought. The other one is to always remind them that it is by far from every other career I've had, every other job I've had, the highest amount of rejection you will ever, ever, ever face. In 1 week, if you're lucky, if you got one audition a day for the 7 days and you got seven no's, that's probably a lot more than if you're an engineer applying to four different jobs
Yeah.
or a marketing executive, or if you were, in sales, or if you were a doctor, or if you were a teacher, any other position. You'll hear what? No, sorry, no, you're overqualified, underqualified. Okay, come back. Boom, you've got it. If you're lucky, you got one audition a day. Imagine if you got double the auditions.
Yes.
That's
Well,
14 millions. Boom,
and
home run.
that's where I think I've got it made. I mean, with the broken nose, the ugly face, I'm like, I've dealt with rejection all my life. This part, I've got down.
Honestly, man, it's when you get into modeling, it's changing now. When you get into modeling, it's got this kind of like, okay, you got to be this height, this weight, this look, that. Right? It's kind of cookie cutter. It's changing a lot now, but it's still got that kind of template you got to fill or
Hmm.
fit in. And then as actors, that's completely different. Completely different. You know, they need tall, short, black, white, pink, purple, one lash, two lash, 10 lashes. You can wink, you can blink, open eye, closed eye. You know, this in your lip, this in your teeth, this no teeth, this tattoo, no tattoo. They need it all because it needs to actually fit characters,
Yeah.
right? Modeling is a lot more harsh, and sometimes there's no expression at all. It's just you walk in your boat, you're very like, you don't smile, you don't show teeth, you're doing runway, you know what I mean? You're very mannequin like, right? So
You put a lot of that work into it. You have to continue. You have to keep being motivated. It doesn't matter if there's rejection. It doesn't matter if there's failure. You learn from it and you keep pushing forward. A huge thank you to Tazito Garcia for joining us here on KyTalk Live today. We are very grateful to you. Don't forget, you can get his book on Amazon, How to Make It From a No to Whoa Budget. It is a great resource for new filmmakers, podcasters, content creators, actors, anyone looking to get involved in the film industry. Definitely head over and check out this book. The link will be listed below. As we mentioned, Taz is one of the co-founders for MOVIE-EXPO, which is happening this March 20th and 21st. It's a weekend. You have no excuse not to attend. But no, if you want to get those juices, those creative juices flowing, you want to reach out and talk to other people within the industry, behind the scenes, in front of the cameras, network a bit, learn as much as you possibly can, get your feet wet. Definitely go to movie-expo.com, purchase your tickets for a cool-ass virtual experience. Thank you to everybody who did watch. I really do appreciate it. And remember to keep being badass.